Yes, as you said, I'm Esfahani. I am come from a large city in Iran. Maybe it's the third largest city in Iran. And well, I, as like others, I was also listening to pop music, American music, and everything. But after some while, I became interested in traditional music, and in big cities, the music which is traditional is the classical music, and the music which they teach it in big cities. So there is two type of music in Iran: those from cities or rural, which is called the classical, and also you have the folk music or regional
Yeah.
music. And in Iran, as you know, there are a lot of different type of folk music and ethnic groups, so they have their own type of music. So I learned classical Persian music. I went to school like others who go to school and learned to play the santur when I was 16, 17 years old.
Hmm.
There was a school there, and then there were some, first the elementary music, which I should learn how to play the instrument, and then I was introduced to the radif, or the repertoire of Persian classical music. The thing is that the classical music was always taught by heart. So the teacher played, and the students just tried to repeat it and learn it as the teacher played it. And there was not a written tradition for that. But like 70, 80 years ago, so they began to use the Western notation. And when I was also going to teach the santur, so I also was introduced to Western type of reading the music. Actually, the radif is, most of the radif is not rhythmic, so it's a free rhythmic type of music. And that's why what you write actually as music is different from what you play. So it's the Western notation shows you a little bit of what actually are the tones you are going to play, but the matter of metric and how you perform it, you have to go to the teacher to see or to learn how to play it. Yeah. The santur is an Iranian instrument, but you can find variations of the instrument in countries all over the world. Maybe it is one of the oldest instruments in the world because it looks like a harp. The only thing is that you put it on knees or on a board and you play it with hammers. But otherwise it's just a harp. And santur has been developed a lot in Iran. Many people, they play santur in Iran, and also it's a good instrument because it's a both melodic instrument and also very rhythmical. So it's also used in ensemble playing also. This is a santur with 72 strings, and this is the most normal type of instrument which is used in Iran. As you see, it's a small instrument. It's not that big, but I think it's because of that tuning the instrument is also very difficult. So they try to maybe diminish it and make it smaller, and also the sound become more clear when it's smaller, because when you play on the instrument it can make a lot of sounds and it just sustains. But with this the type of santur which we have now, so the sound is much more crystal clear.
It used to be bigger in Iran as well, the santur. It used to be bigger instruments because we know from Eastern Europe where we have the big cymbal.
Yeah.
They're this size.
Yes, they say that those the old santours in Iran, they have had more strings. Like the santur in north of Kashmir, which comes actually to Kashmir like 400 400 years ago in north of India, and it has Persian origin. That one has 104 strings. And the other one in Iraq, which also was related to Persian music, is also with 100 strings. But the Persian music has become smaller, and you have also some other instruments which they have more strings. So I suppose it has been bigger.
Okay.
We use this position, or this position, or this position. So this is 3 octaves which you can play with the instrument.
Yeah.
You hammer the strings by 2 mallets, and that's why it can become very rhythmical. It's like a percussion instrument. If I play just something like see, it's easy to make a lot of rhythmic variations on the instrument. So it's one of santur's specialities. So what we do actually in the santur, we can remove the bridges like this, so you can get another type of tones. See, it's a type of things to do modulation while you play the santur.
If you move the bridge there, this note changes, but this note changes as well, right?
Yes.
And how does that relate? Is there are there then certain notes you can't play, or is there always a certain mathematic relationship?
What a santur player, Iranian santur player do is that they arrange the instrument in some way that they know what corner is what. So they make different arrangements in order to play all Dastgah or Iranian music. So that's what we do, and it's an instrument which is actually in some way very easy to play, and in another way very difficult to find out what you have to do with that in order to get everything played with the instrument.
And you mentioned the word Dastgah, so can you explain, because that's what we know as a word from Persian music, but what does it imply?
Dastgah is like Dastgah is the system of Persian music, the modal system of Persian music, and it's like maqam in Arabic or Turkish music. But it differs a little bit. Dast means hand, and gah means the place which you put on the cliff of the, for example, lute. And what it means that you show, it's a kind of scale. Persian music and Arabic music, all of them, they relate once to a scale. Another one, the melodic pattern, which relates these tones to each other. So for us to have a scale, like a major scale, so you go from the first tone and you make a daramad or introduction with that, and then there are other notes which becomes important and new centers. So you learn how with the help of these melodies from the Radif repertoire, you learn how to go from one tone to another, and this repertoire helps you to explore those notes in a scale.
Okay. Can you give a simple example of a phrase that is related to a certain scale and how you use that?
Yeah. For example, now I play a scale which is called Esfahan, and Esfahan is a minor, like a minor key from G. And this is the note which is very important. And I just improvised in a type of music which shows how you can begin this Esfahan or this mode.
Because, so if you play with other musicians, they would recognize more or less instantly.
Yeah.
Okay, we're in Esfahan.
Yes. And then this is the. Here is the important when you begin. But if you say, then the second note is important. Which is Bayat Raja, for example. And you go back to the normal. So
Yeah.
it's just from the first to the second. And you learn how you can go from the first tone to the second. And then if you think a scale from the beginning to 7 notes and going back, it takes like 1 hour. So that's the repertoire how we learn to go from different steps.
Yeah. Within
And there
the
are
same
also songs which is related to this scale. Oh, there are many scales. For instance, if you play just a G minor and you play quarter tone in the second tone, so you get a shur. It's also a kind of minor. This is another scale which is called shur. And you have also here you have Bayat Turk. Which is a kind of major. For example, I do like this. For example, Mukhalif Sega. There are all different things we can make with them. But in Persian music, there are like 12 of them, which is the main biggest scales. And it's even in Arabic music or in Turkish music, they have different names. Sometimes I call it Esfahan, and in Arabic, for example, they call it Nahawand. So it's just the name is different, but we play the
same notes.
Same notes, yeah. For example, if you say I play now a Masnavi, Masnavi is a form of poetry. For example, Rumi wrote a lot of Masnavi. And it's a poetry form, and it's like بشنو از نی چون حکایت می کند و از جدایی ها شکایت می کند. And you learn how you can play this rhythm free rhythmically on this scale.
So the rhythm is related to the words?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you, even though you play an instrument, so you learn how to use this poetry and put it in different type of moods. For example, like the Masnavi. بشنو از نی چون حکایت می کنم و از جدایی ها شکایت می کنم و از جدایی ها شکایت می کنم از نیستان تا مرا بریدم از نفیر مرد زن نالیدم سینه خواهم شنگ شنگ از فراق تا که جویم شرح درد اشتیاق آن کسی کو دور ماند ز اصل خویش باز جویم روزگار اصل خویش. And even though you have this song which is so, and the poetry which is so beautiful is telling about the ney, even it is a rhythmic thing, so you learn how to deal with that and make your own way of singing the rhythm. Yeah. So this is the whole the vocal part of Persian music, which is about, because you have to know all the rhythmic patterns of the classical poetry.
Yeah.
And try to play while you are improvising. You have to go through a poetry and play with that type of.
Okay.
So it's what is actually similar to Arabic and Turkish music is that the Persian language, after the Arab invasion and the Persian language, it changed. We got a lot of new words in our language, and also the poetry form it also changed, and Persian poetry it's flourished. It became very interesting. Many new rhythms came to our language, and also the poetry become really great.
Yeah.
That is the golden.
Which
area.
period is this? When is this?
It's from almost 800 until 1400. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are great poets, and also the Persian poetry afterwards became very popular in all the courts, all the kingdoms in that area, and even in India, they wanted a Persian poet because the poetry has become so interesting. And still in our classical music we use the same type of poetry, and the interesting thing is that even though it is like 1,000 years ago, but it's no problem for me to understand what they were telling. It's easy to understand the poetry, and at the same time you go through a kind of system going to your teacher. Your teacher is going to be your moral also teacher. He gives you this instruction of playing the instrument related to the philosophy and the thoughts, and also how you can improvise with that in order to be a an independent musician, so you have to find your way of expressing different poetry and also relate yourself to different type of philosophy and thinking.
Yeah.
So that's why what is interesting, that these rhythms of the poetry is in between Arabic and Persian and Turkish is the same. The poetry is, for example, if I say do beiti, I say, for example, یکی درد و یکی درمان پسنده، یکی وصل و یکی هجران پسنده. من از درمان و وصل و من از یکی درد و یکی درمان پسنده.
Yeah.
یکی and all of, and this is on like مفاعیلا مفاعیلا مفاعیل, which is Arabic. مفاعیلا مفاعیلا مفاعیل مفاعیلا مفاعیل مفاعیل, which is 7 beats.
So those for us irregular rhythms, they come from words like.
Yes.
No.
So and whenever somebody wants to get close to a poetry, so he has to know about aruzi. It means the result of Arabic, Persian, languages which came together and became so interesting. And what it was before Arabs, I don't know, but there is an era which almost Iranians, North Africans, and Turkish people, they had almost the same type of performing music and making poetry.